Good evening, good morning. I am Shroda Aglago, the host for Love, Forgive, Live. I have a guest today. We are recording live, of course, because I've got a guest on. If you're not familiar, today I have a guest. His name is Marc Weisman. He is a healer. The best name I could get for him is a spiritual healer. He heals. He works mainly with the veterans. So I do expect a lot of information. Please take your pen and paper because I want you to be involved. I want you to write down questions, send emails to me, and I'll make sure we address this next week. Now, I believe I'm trying to let Marc in. And
well, I can see you if that counts.
I can't see you.
Oh, I don't know if this phone works.
Maybe check your camera.
I'm technologically challenged.
Well, join the group. You need more lights. I can't even see you.
Yeah, let's see.
Okay, a lot better.
There we go.
Okay, so hello, Marc. We spoke earlier. Now, this brother, I'll call him a brother. There's a reason why. This brother, I spoke to him, and, let me just explain what happened. I was speaking to him, and then he was able to tap into me as to my core belief system, what I practice daily, and every second of the day, I'm aware of our connection to one another. And he was able to tap in. And then after he spoke, now, those of you who know me, I'm pretty hardcore, oh no, I don't want anybody to see my tears. But I am emotional. However, I try to calm down and not be too much. But he got me choking on my tears. And I was like, wait a minute. How is he able to get this within seconds of talking to him and him talking to me? And I realized something. He does have a gift to connect with one another and to know that, and I'll repeat what I said again. I am not in a bubble by myself now because I know that there's a tribe of brothers and sisters who are working diligently for healing. And this brother is a healer. And let me just let him explain what he does because I am in awe of that. Please introduce yourself even more.
Well, as you mentioned, my name is Dr. Weisman, Dr. Marc.
Yes.
I am a Norse Ulfhepnar, which, according to legend, we are the shaman warriors of the Norse legends and the Norse sagas. We were special forces as far as weaponry goes, but we also produce a very large shamanistic side where we practice the arts of the Lemvedi. We interpret dreams as communications from the land spirits to individuals to help guide them on their path of life.
Yes.
And what you and I spoke of earlier is very true to the point in that we use the spiritual world around us as a balance to what we do and what we are.
Yes.
So when we come out of balance with the spiritual world around us,
yes,
we find ourselves facing illnesses, facing mental illnesses, mental challenges. And that's because we've come out of balance with the world around us.
Yes.
And so what it takes is just somebody to sit down who understands the balance that has to occur in each of our lives for us to be successful and move forward, particularly through any type of illness or any type of mental challenge that the gods lay before us. We need to be we need to tend to that relationship for all the other relationships to fall into place.
Yes.
When we take one relationship out of balance, it has a tendency to have a very trickle effect all the way down. So that's my job, if you will, is that I try to find a spiritual balance for folks and help them to understand where it's come out of balance and how to get it back into balance so that they can heal and move past it.
I love that, because balance is very crucial in any relationship. If we spend time on one aspect of our lives and focus all our energy on that one aspect, it's going to create a disconnect and a lack of balance in all aspects of our lives. And I recognize that we are constantly juggling and trying to find that balance. Most people give up. And then they convince themselves that, oh, I can only do one thing. I can only focus here. Meanwhile, the being, the human vessel, is supposed to be in balance. And when something is not in balance, you're right. There's mental illness, constant battle with yourself, and the fact that the balance exists, but people deny that. And when they deny it, they don't recognize that they're creating more discourse.
Right. And they have created the imbalance themselves, but now they're going to, in many cases, everyone runs to the medicine cabinet in an effort to restore that balance instead of doing the hard work, the actual work at looking intrinsically and figuring out where we've created the imbalance, where we've done that.
Yes, you're exactly right. And when I have clients come and then they were like, fix me, I look at them like, I'm not a fixer. And then they were like, well, something is broken, fix me. Or people bring their kids, they say, fix the child. Here's the thing. I always tell my client, you are an expert on your life. I'm not. I'm not an expert on anything. The only thing I do is I facilitate your growth. I facilitate your healing, and I facilitate your processing and for you to explore where you're not paying attention.
Exactly. And that's exactly right, is that, you introduced me as a healer, and I don't think of myself as a healer. I think more of myself as a guide.
Yes.
And that my job is essentially to lead you to the answers you already know.
Yes.
You've already had, and you've just temporarily lost for whatever reason.
Yes.
My job as a spiritual counselor is to then say, okay, here's where it went sideways. So how can we get it back? And the answers. I'm just going to lead you to where they are.
Yes, yes. And that's very, very true. I thank you for correcting me. I appreciate that. One thing I've recognized is this. True individuals that are connected to the heart walk into everyone's processing with the heart leading the healing. And that allows the flow of the balance, because a lot of the time individuals have been indoctrinated or raised to abandon the heart and only focus on logic and maintaining that. And the strangest thing is, you run into the difficulty because you chose to abandon the core, the one that keeps the balance going, gets abandoned, then everything else starts falling apart, and then they go into logic. And the strange thing is, it doesn't help.
No, actually, it'll actually wind up fracturing more than it cures, yes. Because you're leading, with the wrong body part. And you're exactly right. In a PhD study that I've just engaged in,
yes,
my theory is that spiritual communication happens with us humans all day, mm-hmm. every day.
Yes.
And it happens at a location in the brainstem, at the upper part of the brainstem, mm-hmm. but it's constant. It's always happening. Yes. And what we as humans interpret that communication to be is as a sensory input. So we think of it as a feeling, or yes. as maybe a sight that we caught out of the corner of our eye, or a smell, or even people have reported throughout history of feeling brushes.
Yes.
By people who aren't there. Mm-hmm. This is your physical body interpreting mm-hmm. a spiritual signal that it receives at what's called the midbrain, mm-hmm. which is the top of the brainstem. Mm-hmm. And then it's essentially passed into the brain yes. as a sensory input.
Oh, wow.
And that's how you feel the spirituals. Now, the thing that many people don't understand or don't want to grasp with mm-hmm. is that even if I said tomorrow, I don't believe in any of this hocus pocus. Mm-hmm. It's all mumbo jumbo. I don't believe it.
Yes.
The problem is the only person you have fooled is yourself.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes.
Because
it's just you.
The spiritual communications that you have with yourself, with other individuals, with the environment around you, mm-hmm. that continues, whether yes. you want to believe it or not.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. And so when we talk about how do I fix a problem, well, the first thing you have to understand is you have to be able to identify it.
Yes.
And to identify it, we have to say, all right, enough. Mm-hmm. I know there is this communication. I know what's happening. Mm-hmm. How do I quantify it? How can I react to it? Mm-hmm. How do I manage it in mm-hmm. my life?
Yes.
And that's the steps that you need to take. And you're exactly right with people who go into, I call it the medical circle.
Yes.
And those are people who think that Tylenol cures everything. And those people, they have surrendered, not given up, but they have surrendered. They mentally, they have given up the idea that they can do this.
Yes.
And that's where you lead to this vicious circle of getting sick, taking the medicine, getting a little better, mm-hmm. getting sick, mm-hmm. taking the medicine, feel a little better. Mm-hmm. And you wind up in this vicious circle
yes.
that unfortunately many people will spend almost their entire lives in.
Yes. And a fortune chasing that. But the one place almost, how do I put it in a gentle way, they ignore and don't even try to look at.
Right.
It's what is happening. Right. Spiritually, what is happening, emotionally, what is happening, psychologically, they don't look at that.
Agreed.
I had a friend.
They don't give it credence.
No.
They are trying to fake themselves out that there is no value there.
Yes.
And then there are another group of people whom I've worked with who are too prideful after spending, and no offense to any of your listeners, but spending a lifetime in the monotheistic practices, now they don't want to be wrong.
Yes.
They can't be wrong.
Yes.
They can't. And so you wind up having to say, wait, stop. Listen to yourself.
Yes.
You're saying that nothing else can be right.
Yes.
Except for this one trail. And
yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it doesn't even make any sense.
To even think that way.
Yeah, because you haven't even allowed yourself to accept the possibilities. Meanwhile, there are possibilities to consider and be open to. Because unless we are able to open that dialogue, to give ourselves the ability to practice or even try, give it a chance at least. And the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and over and over and hoping to get a different result. Meanwhile, it's the same thing you keep doing.
Different results. Exactly.
How about exiting that loop and saying, well, maybe I should try something new and see if I get a different result.
Right. And there's a lot of people that are trying, that have tried for a while. There are an insane amount of people who unfortunately have been led down a path of where, I can't tell you how many times I'm approached, even at work, and told I'm going to hell because I don't believe the one story that they've all been told and they all believe is beyond contestation.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, okay, in my belief system, hell is a pretty nice place. And so I'm okay with that. And if you're not going to be there, then okay, it's a good place. But my point is that they purposely shut that part out to avoid A, being wrong, or B, being seen as one of the pagan witches of Eastwick, I guess. I'm not sure. But they're just afraid to come out of that box because that box has been 2 millennia of this is the way we do this.
Yes.
And my argument at some point is that where does religion stop and the social club start?
Good question.
And so a lot of people kind of have that piece. If we go all the way back to the beginning of humankind, we see where the very early humans would gather together for safety in numbers, right?
Yes, yes.
They wanted to be safe. There was more of them. There was more to put between the bad guys and themselves.
Yes.
And we've taken that to a degree now where it's ingrained in our psychology that we have to be these social creatures who group en masse for everything.
Yes.
And this is where I think the architects of monotheism, as a general rule of thumb, that's kind of where they scored one for them.
Yes.
In honing in on that need, and it's a shame. But on the same note, the powers of monotheism can work if you're willing to be more open.
Yes, open-mindedness.
Exactly. I say that when I'm feeling ill, which doesn't happen very often, mind you, but when I am, and the Landvedi will come and they will tend to me and we will heal my spirit and I'll get better. if you want to use the name Yahweh
Mm-hmm.
or Allah
Mm-hmm.
or whoever,
Mm-hmm.
then that's your path.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter as long as you understand that this is not your healing is not coming from a needle
Yes.
or a bottle
Mm-hmm.
or a pill.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you understand that, almost regardless what name you put on it,
Yes.
that's what it is.
Yes, yes. And it's very powerful to understand that people
Agreed.
forget the strength and the gifts
Mm-hmm.
we were given before we were even created, before we came to this school of earth. It's like it's negated, just doesn't exist. And it always baffles me when people come and they say, oh, but I need this. And I was like, what you're seeking is not outside of you. It's on the inside. If you are feeling this, it's coming from inside. So you need to go inside and heal that. And that brings me to the word disease is dis-ease. Dis-ease because there is a disconnect. The balance is not there. So the disconnect becomes dis-ease.
Good job. Yeah, I like that.
And it baffles me when people say, well, you're making me do this. And I always ask, did the person hold something to your head? Did they hold you down and say, you must do this? You made a decision and chose to react in that way. And
chose to continue to act that way.
Yes.
Because a lot of them, yes. So you chose to be in this circle thing that you're stuck in.
Yes. And then you look for proof to perpetuate that circle and maintain it.
Yes.
And the maintenance is what is causing more and more of the dis-ease. So then people can, and it blows my mind. And every time, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I dealt with many people,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk about having a spiritual channel.
Yes.
From the environment, from other people, from everything.
Yes.
And it's like a channel that goes directly into your brain
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to communicate and things to communicate with you.
Yes.
And what I say is people seek to fill that channel. They don't want emptiness in that channel,
mm-hmm.
because that provides us all with this, I don't want to call it hopelessness, but you get that hollow feeling.
Yeah, and the despair.
In your soul. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean when I'm saying that channel is not full.
Mm-hmm.
So people will attempt to fill that channel
mm-hmm.
with logic.
Oh, yeah.
and I'm here to tell you that channel doesn't flow with logic.
Yes, because logic is governed with ego. Ego cannot fill that.
Right. Pride cannot fill that.
No.
Ego, right.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it must come from the heart. And because that center has all the connection. Right. And it's linked to all of it.
And that's why
bring it back.
And that's why I think a big part of our lives, and I encourage your listeners as well,
mm-hmm.
A big part of our lives needs to be seeking out ways. And I chose meditation myself,
yes.
but there's plenty of other avenues.
Yes.
To find the balance
Yes.
in your life.
Yes.
Whatever that means. Your balance is not the same as my balance. My balance is not the same as that person's over there.
Yes.
All of us have a different balance that we need to focus more energy
yes.
at finding the balance
yes.
than explaining the balance.
Oh, that's a huge one. Because people start to look for ways to explain it away, and it's not easy. You cannot.
Well, you can fake yourself. Don't kid me. Don't kid yourself. I mean, we've got two millennia now of people faking themselves out. So you can fake it. But one of the things, as I mentioned in our previous conversation, where I was an ordained chaplain through the Baptist Church, and I was actually ordained originally in the Presbyterian Church, but then quickly transferred over. And what I found was a hollowness. And originally, I looked at this hollowness. I felt not full, not content.
Yes.
And I looked at it and I said, why do I feel this way? I'm an ordained chaplain. I have reached the pinnacle, if you will, of the monotheistic practice.
Yes.
Why don't I feel full? And it dawned on me that the channel that I was trying to fill is two-directional.
Yes.
So not only can I expect people to talk to me in that channel, I need to talk to them.
Yes.
And that's where, our conversation earlier, we were talking, and I could feel where things were talking to me, and I needed to talk back.
Yes.
And so, again, always going to the balance. And when we talk about balance, we talk about logic, and if you want to apply some logic, I'll throw some logic at you. And I think we talked about it before in an earlier conversation, and I said, when you think about the land spirits, call them whatever you want, yard gnomes, that makes you feel better. But think about the development of the whole concept behind understanding land spirits.
Yes.
And I'll draw our attention to, if you follow the evolution of humans, let's go way back.
Yes.
Okay? We see the humans migrating out of Africa down along the southern coast, across India, into the Far East.
Yes.
Then there was another group that went up through the Mongolian steppes and out through China. Another group that went up through Europe. Another two groups. One went, what would it be? West. West to the northern shores of Africa, and then down the coast.
Yes.
And then the last group to speak of went directly south, down the African continent, ultimately arriving at the South African tip.
Yes.
And all of these societies developed independently an understanding and a balance.
Yes. Every single continent has this.
Independently. So it wasn't like monotheism. You get it initiating in Jerusalem and then migrating north. Meanwhile, it goes a little to the east there, not very far.
Yeah.
But it goes and then eventually winds up here in the United States. But you can see very clearly how it went from A to B to C.
Yes.
You can watch the migration with land spirits and the understanding of the spiritual world.
Yes.
We see it just popping up in completely different locations. There is no migration path.
Yes.
To understanding spiritual adaptation.
Yes.
Spiritual inclusion. There is no path. So, the Norse, we believe in the Landvedi, the indigenous land spirits and
Yes.
spirits of the land.
Yes.
Far East, they have a very large group.
Yes.
Even if you follow the South African migration of the voodoo.
Yeah, voodoo, yeah.
As it came to Haiti, and then ultimately north here in the U.S., even they understood the power of the spiritual world around them.
Yes.
And were able to use that. And, a lot of people went, oh, voodoo, black magic and all this. And it really wasn't. It really was going back
it
to
didn't start that way at all.
Ago, they are healers, and they understood the balance that the humans had to achieve to get better.
Yeah, and the respect,
and that's what they did.
For the respect for nature, respect for the land, respect for all the connections, and they felt that they were connected to everything. There was no separation. And that belief system is, I think there's an awakening now, or people are recognizing it and seeing that, wait a minute. Yeah, this doesn't work. It doesn't work well if I ignore this, because it keeps showing up in our lives.
Yeah.
And we realize that the spiritual world is ever present. And I remember reading a book by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he said there's a spiritual answer to every problem.
It's true.
And I recognized, I read, and I was like, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's powerful.
I did a presentation where I was talking about that exact thing. In that when we talk to the spirits, everyone's like, oh, well, these spirits are old and they may not understand the new technology. Well, I'm going to throw out a bone here.
Yeah.
Sounds like someone needs one. But the people who found solutions 2,000 years ago, many of those solutions are what we refer to as common sense.
Yes.
Which, unfortunately, is becoming a superpower. But most of the solutions that they had 2,000 years ago will work today as well as they did then.
Yes.
Because
I agree.
They're timeless. They're common sense.
And I think
yes, you're right
in the sense that people are not recognizing that common sense is priceless. And once applied, you almost look like a genius.
Yeah.
And you would hear people
become the smartest man in the room.
Yeah. You people say that, and then you, the individual who is using that common sense, you look at everybody and think, wait, I thought everybody's thinking the same way.
Yeah.
How is this not able to be applied?
Did I get a memo that you guys didn't?
What? Exactly. And yeah. I remember growing up and things would happen, and then I would come up with some solutions, and my dad used to always laugh at me. And then people would ask me, how did you know that? How did you know? And I'm like, well, it was obvious, didn't you? And then they look at me and they're like, but how did you know? I can't explain it. To me, it was just there. It was obvious. And then I remember my child was growing up, and I think as a teen, and she said, well, Mom, not everybody can dive into their own selves and question things like the way you do. So stop thinking that everybody. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. And she said, that was a judgment on your part. And I was like, okay, you're right. So yes, common sense does apply a lot.
It does. And I tell people all the time, and they go, oh, well, you're so smart. And I'm like, no, I'm no smarter than you are. I just have bigger ears, and I'm willing to listen. And so if you're willing to listen, chances are you can get the answers at which you seek.
Yes.
But you just got to listen.
Yes.
And that I have an age-old phrase that I love to use when we're talking about, well, how can you be a counselor? How do you do that? And I said, think about it, man. The gods gave you 2 ears, 1 mouth. Think about that.
Listen as twice as much as you speak.
Yeah, you use twice. You should use twice as much hearing as you do talking. And so it's just ideas to help people understand that. I'm not a brilliant guy. I'm, again, no more superhuman than anyone else. One of the things that I did a long time ago was surrender my pride.
Oh, yes.
One of the things that is one of the major obstacles, particularly when I'm dealing with people steeped in monotheistic practices, we talk about you got to put your pride aside.
Yes.
We're not talking about something that you're going to win here on earth. This is your everlasting existence.
Yes.
That you're talking about here.
Yes.
So I think it's worth putting in, if you got to eat a little crow, you got to eat a little crow.
Yes.
It is what it is. But the idea is that if you can grow from it, learn from it,
yes,
and you're better for it, think of all the people you could really help who need to get through that wall as well. And so,
yes, pride is extremely difficult.
Very strong advocate about getting others to teach.
Yes.
And that helps them grow individually. But more importantly, it provides a realism to that third person down the road.
Yes. And that's the key. The realism. Because I don't know how we got here where the reality or real connection to one another became lost. And of course, I would walk around sometimes and I'm talking or I hear things, and then I hear that pride push through so hard. And, sometimes it almost hurts for me to hear that. And then I'm like, oh, if they could just put that aside, they could see truth. They could see their real self and hear what they need to do. But it's
getting people to see their own self-worth is sometimes the monumental task. Agreed.
Yes. And that pride is such a huge thing every day. I remember listening to a book by Dr. Wayne and Eckhart Tolle, and it says, "No More Excuses." That's the title of the book. And they said, wake up every day to slay the ego, to slay that pride. Make that your practice daily. When you wake up, be intentional, because your ego and that pride will keep coming, and it keeps gunning for you. And you have to be fully aware that it's a daily work. And I remember somebody asked in a talk that or in a book, how could you beat it and win? And he said, the win is recognizing that the thought that is coming is your pride.
Right. Yes.
Recognizing it is the win.
Yes.
So then I was like,
that is your victory.
That is your victory, because after you recognize it, now you can focus on the real.
Right.
Because that's
now
what is going to give you. Yes. Now you can see where you're going and begin to do the work you must do within, no matter what and who and how you're trying to get yourself to. It comes from within. And it's it's everything. I was seeing something on my social media, which was, I wrote like 9 years ago. And I said, no matter who you are, your source of happiness is focused on what is working right now. And recognizing it's coming from within. And no matter amount of anything outside of you will make you happy. So then I wrote, wow, I wrote that then without knowing what I know now. And I am grateful that I had begun my path into digging in. And now it's more true now than ever. So I said, reposting that. And I think that's what it is. People say, well, you triggered me. You did this, you did this, you did this. No, go in. Maybe there's a trauma that you haven't dealt with. So now this person just played a part in the play for you to see that trauma that you never dealt with. Now it's come up. That person was just a character in the play that is already within you of that trauma.
Agreed.
So somebody who sing a song, you'd be like, that triggered me. That song really didn't trigger you. What it did is bring up that childhood, that trauma you experienced. Let's deal with it. And people be like, oh, that's all long and gone. No, it's still there. And
no, brain doesn't forget.
No,
never forget.
Oh, no. And I don't know if this ever happened to you or not, but if I'm in session with someone and they start communicating about something, and all of a sudden, the age group they were, when the trauma happened, shows up. And then when that shows up, I remember when I started experiencing that, I'll be like, wait, I just saw an 8-year-old. What happened?
Right.
And then they're like,
yeah.
Well, how did you know? And my answer to them, every single one of them, I say, well, that little boy just showed up, or that little girl just showed up. And they were like, what do you mean? And I said, you became that person or that little girl. So then usually I would tell them it's time to give voice to that little girl. Bring her out.
Right.
Let's discuss this. And a lot of people get very frightened about that.
Yeah, that's certainly uncharted waters. When for most folks, when you ask them, 2 points there is A, we're asking individuals to be intrinsic, and people get really nervous when you ask them to be intrinsic internally to themselves. But then B, if it's some type of bad memory, particularly anything with emotion attached to it, you're going to find that people will get very, very defensive.
Yeah.
And what I tell them is, you're being defensive to the wrong person.
Yes.
I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I wasn't even there when it happened. The person whom you need to deal with about this is right there. It's staring at you in the mirror.
Yes.
When you're brushing your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to come to terms with whatever that other person is saying for you to achieve a peace, if you will,
yes,
with that part of whatever the memory is.
Yes. And
so, but yeah, no, you're exactly right. Getting people to go intrinsic, to look at themselves, in a introspective way, frightens many people.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think people don't know what's in there.
Yeah.
It's like, weren't you there? I always ask them, weren't you there when you learned everything? Weren't you there when you experienced everything? Well, yeah, but how's it mix up? No. One step at a time. Understand you are who you are because of what you've done.
Yeah.
First. You can't change it.
Yes.
You can't change what you've done. You can change what you're going to do.
Yes.
But you can't change what you've done. So let's start with those two kind of as our goalposts, if you will, and kind of move forward.
Yes.
And then we can start seeing, very much where you'll be communicating about something. The individual's being very forthcoming and boom, boom, boom. And then bam, you hit some memory.
Yes.
Where the pride wall comes up, everything just shuts down and they shut down. And you go, okay, let's back up 2 steps.
Yes.
And let's talk about whatever it is that just made you do that thing that you just did. And whatever that is. And so then it's like, okay, so we got to peel back the pride.
Yes.
We have to peel back the self-protection mechanism.
Yes.
The perceived self-protection methods.
Thank you. Yes.
Or mechanisms. And so then get to kind of, okay, so I understand you have an issue with this. And
oh, you froze there for a second. Mark? Oh, he said the internet connection is unstable. Oh, there we go. Hello?
I work with a lot of special forces operators, a lot of high-end, high energy. I call them high energy, but I guess they're lethal weapons for the military that are returning from combat assignments. And these guys are incredibly prideful, and rightfully so. They've accomplished amazing things.
Yes.
Yeah. They've done some amazing things in their lives, and they're great people and whatnot. And when I try to get them to just kind of drop a few notches on the old pride barrier, this is really where I've kind of gone. It really, I would say, has added to my self-disclosure of moving away, even further away from monotheistic practices, because I see where these boys grew up in the Midwest. They grew up on good old Americana values, mom and dad at home, Sunday church, Little League, the whole 9 yards. And the problem is you've got 2 major factors dealing there. Firstly and foremost, you have the religious expectations that are plugged into us from even before birth until we leave home. And then in their case, they also have that male persona. Oh, me man, beat chest. and so, we wind up in this wonderful discussion where we speak about, my ancestors, a little more self-disclosure. I come from 18 generations research to date of Germanic Danes.
Oh, wow.
So I have 18 generations who lived in northern Denmark. The research goes back to the 1400s right now.
Wonderful.
And these guys, I'm still 400 years past the age of Vikings, but the mentality is there of all of my ancestries there. And we talk about how men express feelings.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is, but it doesn't have to be. And that's what I'm always telling them, is that, gentlemen, expressing one's emotional state is simply telling me the weather.
That's a good way to put it.
It is no different, because it could change in a minute, right?
Yeah.
And you never know. So you always take an umbrella, even on sunny days. But all you're giving me is the weather. We're not getting into intimacy yet.
Yes.
We're just talking about how you feel. How do you feel? And so we have exercises that I like doing where we talk about, hey, how do you feel? And describe it. Describe your feelings. How do you feel?
Wow.
And so, but working through pride, I find is where, and the unfortunate part of working through pride in many cases,
yes,
is where you start unraveling some of these monotheistic beliefs,
yes,
of sin, right and wrong,
mm-hmm.
good and bad,
Mm-hmm.
and you start kind of unraveling those,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get individuals who now understand the balance, who now begin to get, oh, hey, good, bad, yeah, as long as we just keep the teeter-totter level, we'll be all right.
Yes.
So
I like that.
But that's an exercise that people, if I had to say one part of my practice that I do not enjoy, and that would be the one.
Because yes, it's hard with a macho world mentality. It's very difficult to break through that facade and normalize it, because I still see up to date, see young boys are hurt and they're crying, and then the adults run to them, don't cry, be strong. Oof. Meanwhile, if the adults were the one that just fell off of a bike and scraped their knee, they would not be like, yeah, that's okay. They would be like, ouch, that hurt. And then make all the noise. But you're telling a little boy, be strong. Boys don't cry.
Right. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like
my
that.
God. Oh my gosh.
Oh, and I'm like, they're still human.
Yes.
When did there being a boy become more important than being human? They still have feelings. They still get hurt. They still have flesh. They still have blood in them, pumping.
Right. And if they won't ask for the little things, they're not going to ask for the big things.
No, they won't. And
they won't tell you when they've broken their heart.
No.
They won't tell you when they have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
They won't tell you when they have debilitating diseases.
Yes.
They won't tell you when they're out of balance,
mm-hmm.
because they've been told not to.
Yeah.
That's a sign of weakness.
Yes. And it's hard to watch this happening over and over and over. And I'm like, we can't raise young boys thinking this way. We can't raise them letting them believe that they shouldn't have a feeling.
Yeah.
Because these are going to become the fathers of the future children. These are the ones who are going to be carrying the country. You want them to feel something.
Right. Yes.
And if they're only going to be operating from pride, oh my goodness, we are in trouble. Yeah. And so I'm so glad you're doing this, because that gives me hope, and in understanding that there are teachers, guides who are marching on to say, hey, there's a safe door you can go through and cry. There's a safe door you can go through and say, I can't do this right now. Or I feel like my knees are about to buckle from underneath me because I don't know if I can carry this. It's okay. And it doesn't make you feel, or it doesn't make you less of a human being, or less of a man or a boy, less of a person. It is what it is. And once we are able to recognize this and accept that it's okay. And, sometimes I will hear people say, oh, I don't want a sissy. And I was like, what is that? Oh, a man who cries. And I'm like, no, you should be thankful you get someone who will be able to cry. I mean, I met somebody once, and the person was watching some sort of a show and cried. And I could not believe when I went to visit, that was a conversation. He says, oh my goodness, I cried today. And I was like, okay, well, that's good. And he's like, you don't understand. I don't even remember the last time I cried. I don't cry. And I was like, well, that's a good thing. And he's like, I couldn't believe I cried.
Yeah. You got to balance that a little bit when we say, oh, not crying or not expressing, even to the point of expressing disappointment. We have to make sure that we say, yes, it's okay to be tough. It's okay to be strong and all this. But it's also okay to cry. It's okay to be disappointed. And remove the stigma of weakness.
Yes.
And that's really when, I'm dealing with I call them the macho men of the military. That's really what we get to, is saying, all right, look, guys, yeah, it's okay to be a badass. It is.
Yes.
It's, everyone does it. Everybody wants to be there. Yes. It's good. But it's also okay to express feelings.
Yes.
Emotional responses to things going on in your life. It's okay. It's okay to watch my son, one of my older sons, when he graduated boot camp, he gave me his pin as a little for crossing the crucible. He was a Marine, and he gave me the pin that they gave him, and I cried openly.
Of course, that's pride, and in your child,
big old burly guy, and my former daughter-in-law said, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever received."
Yes.
He's my son, and he accomplished this great thing, but yet he was willing to think of me.
Yes.
So, and it took her, and she was a younger lady, and it took her a while to understand.
Oh, wow.
That I was okay with expressing emotion, but yet I could still turn around and throw around 4x4s in our backyard when it was time to stand up a fence.
Yes.
Just like anybody else.
Yeah.
And so expressing emotions is a great thing. It also allows, I think, it allows us to connect again with the spiritual world around us.
Yes.
Emotion is how spirits communicate. And if we can express that to friends, to family, to strangers.
Yes.
What a wonderful world this would be.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's powerful. And it's not something that I refuse to believe that it's not achievable. Maybe I'm a dreamer, but I believe we can
I'm in that
start
dream.
Yes, because
I'm there with you.
Yes, we need to allow ourselves to be disconnected. Because yes, I go to a grocery store, and I remember once I walked into a grocery store and I saw a young lady being berated by an elderly who obviously you can tell she's struggling with dementia. And it seems like the only thing she asked for, the young lady asked for, was, excuse me, I'd like to pick up something from here. And the elderly lost it with her and started calling her all kinds of names and yelling at her. So the young lady was crying. And she felt scolded. She was just standing there. This was like 6:30 in the morning. It's a grocery store that's open for 24 hours. So I'm like, I just came here to get things to make breakfast for my family, before they go to work and school. And then my heart was like, I can't leave her in this state. I refuse to watch this and see her crying and shaking and just walk away. And I went straight to the young lady and I was like, may I talk to you? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, this is not your fault for one thing. You didn't do anything wrong. You have nothing to do with her. I know she's yelling at you and say, you're the cause of her problems right now. You have nothing to do with this. She said, but she's yelling at me. And I said, you just happened to be there at that moment when she was having her issue. So it's not your fault. She said, I don't even want it. And I was like, you've got it. Let's go and pay for it. And then I did, because Mitchell, I'm a huge advocate of meditation. It's my daily practice every morning and every night before I sleep. So I do my routine. So I'm like, okay, do you mind if I help you, or if I give you some tips to change this state you're in so that you can walk out of here feeling joy? And she's like, I don't know how this could be done. I was like, it all depends on you. Can you give me 2 minutes to 5 minutes? She's like, okay. So then I just stood with her and I said, okay, I'm going to put you through a practice. I'm not going to touch you. I'm not going to take anything from you. I just need you to close your eyes. And she said, okay. And I said, just hold your purse. You make sure your purse is around you so nobody can come and pick it up. So we were standing there in this grocery store, and I put her through guided meditation. And I spoke to her and I said, okay, I want you to listen to some water around you. And I said, you can invite some birds around you. Listen to them. And she started listening. And I said, okay, what else do you believe in? And she spoke, and I was like, okay. So then I guided her through it. Then I said, okay, now walk into that quiet room. Whatever you see, hand that, the emotion you're feeling now, the hurt or what you just experienced, hand it to that. And it's within you. Hand it to that. Let it go. And feel the peace that is in that particular room that you're in right now. And feel the joy and the warmth and the love that is readily available for you. You can go in there anytime you want. It's yours. It's within you. Now, I'm going to bring you back here. And recognize that the atmosphere has changed. You're no longer feeling the way you felt. She comes back out. And then she relaxed and she stopped crying. She's like, wait, I'm a lot more calmer. You know what? It's been a pretty good morning so far. And I was like, well, thank you. And she said, you're right. I didn't have anything to do with that. I'm okay. It had nothing to do with me. And then she finished paying her stuff, and I paid my stuff, not knowing she was waiting outside the door for me. And she said, are you going to be here again tomorrow? I'll be here in the morning. I was like, yeah, no. I'll give you my card. Call me when you want a session. And then she's like, sure. We both laughed, and then we're gone. I remember calling my supervisor, and she's like, don't you ever do that again. You'll be attracting all these kind of people. And I was like, well, I couldn't just stand there and watch this woman go through this. And I said, I felt her pain, and I refuse to leave her in that state. Then she said, well, you do a good thing, but don't make that a practice. But yeah. And what would you tell our young people today, if you had a chance to tell a young person the one or two things they need to make sure that they're maintaining that balance? What would that be?
The first thing I would tell them is that you are absolutely worth every minute.
Wow.
You are you are perfect the way you are.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people report where they are trying to fit into something that they may or may not believe in. Yes. Honestly.
Mm-hmm.
People, particularly young people, who are so influenced by the media madhouse of social media and the media, but they need to understand that they are worth every minute of themselves. They are worthy. All by themselves. They don't need pretty clothes. They don't need a new car at 16. They don't need $1,000 cell phone. They are just fine.
Yes.
And then the second item I would tell them is everything you will ever need in your life is inside of you.
Ooh, I love that.
You have all the means, all the abilities to make everything that you want, need, happen.
Yes, I love that.
You have to do the work.
Yes, do the work, because we cannot run.
But if you do it now, you've set that foundation forever. Because you can always refer back to it. It's like riding a bicycle. Once you understand how to communicate with spirits, and make sure that you're creating that balance in your life, you can come back to it at any time. I mean, obviously, you have to make that choice to do that.
Yes.
But you can do that. You make the choice. You can go there, and you can do that.
Yes.
So that is very, very important.
I love that, because that is what you're right. The young people are struggling so much now. And I look at what is going on and I'm like, oh my goodness, I thought when I was young, my life was hard. Not nearly as hard as these kids. They are bombarded from every angle.
Every minute of every day.
Yes. And I hear a lot of them now, they said, I'm afraid to turn my phone ringer on. I'm afraid to turn my notification on. I'm afraid to turn the vibration on because there's so many things coming at me that I get jumpy and nervous. So now I'm constantly in anxiety.
Yep.
And I'm like, whoa.
Absolutely. Yep. And the less computer time we can actually spend, the better. Getting outside, enjoying the nature or hanging out with friends without technology, the better off we're all going to be.
Yes.
It is and I don't mind technology as much. Obviously,
you're using it.
It's a great thing. But the influence, particularly on younger minds.
Yes.
The influence is insane.
Yeah.
It is absolutely insane. So I try to tell everyone, old and young alike, it doesn't really matter, but that you are worthy. You have self-worth. You are so important in a circle that, yes, I may not understand. I may not know all of your support, all your friends and all your relatives and all your peeps. But what I do know is that they know you. Yes. And they want to be with you. They've gone out of their way to be your friend or to be, if just because we're related doesn't mean we all have to hang out. But for those folks that do want to hang out, that's great because that means they've made a conscious decision to do that, which tells me that you, every young person, have self-worth. Yes. You are so worthy. And I can't tell you how many young people I've worked with. And I tell them all the time, it's like, well, why is what that girl over there is saying, why is it so important to you? Well, because she's the club hootie-doo or whatever. And I tell her, I was like, but wait, me and your parents and maybe some good friends are all telling you that you're really cool just the way you are. why is what she's saying have more value than what we're saying?
Yes.
And so it's really an intrinsic thing that they have to go through. But ultimately, I would just constantly beat the drum of that they are worthy.
The worthiness.
That they are worth every minute of anyone's time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more than happy to spend time with them.
Yes, I love that.
More than happy.
I love that. And I think that's what, a lot of our young people need to hear this, and wanting to, the wanting to belong. But then it's a facade that doesn't match truth, that doesn't match reality. And then that keeps leaving them more and more hollow too. And they get more angry. Like, but I thought if I do all this, I'll belong, I'll be worthy, I'll be good enough. Then it's like, it's not working.
Shivers.
Yeah. And I hear this so much. I remember when I was going to high school, I used to be one of those awkward teens. And with full disclosure here, and I'm going to talk about some of my stuff. I remember going to school and people saying, "Oh, she's too fat. She's fat. She's fat." And here I was at the skinniest of my entire life. And I didn't like that, because I thought, well, everybody looks like a wave. I should look like them. And I didn't.
Right.
And so then someone said something about, oh, do this and then you'll be able to lose weight. And I would stuff myself with donuts. And then go and get this thing and purge. And because I don't want to educate anybody about what to do, so I have to be very general. So then I did that. And I think 3 months, I was forgetting. I was getting testy with my parent. I was not comfortable with anything, and I wasn't sleeping well. My grades were dropping. Then I was required to go and see the guidance counselor. And he talked to me. He said, "What's going on with you? The teachers are worried. Like, sometimes you're even sleeping in class. What's going on?" And I broke down angry because I was hungry. And I spoke to the guidance counselor, and he said, "You know what? I have an idea. How about you eat real food and you just work out? But the workout you're doing is not for you to lose weight, for your brain to start getting what it needs." And I was like, "What?" "But I want," he said, "forget about that. You're perfect." And I was like, "What?" "No, I'm not." And he said, "You're perfect. Trust me. If you don't believe me, go ask your dad." And I said, "Well, some kids." And I said, "Okay, did the entire school call you those names?" Like, no. "How many people said those things to you?" And I was like, "Well, 1 or 2 girls." And he said, "So this entire school, over 500 kids, with a large staff, including me, and your dad, and your family, never said that to you. But the 1 or 2 girls that said this to you, they matter? Are you recognizing that they are more important? You're saying their opinion of you is more important than 500 or 498 students in the school. Doesn't matter."
Right.
And I was like, "Well," and he said, "Yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it?" And I was like, "Actually," and then that day, he bought a burger for me and said I had to sit in his office and eat. Then he said, "And you're not going," I asked your teacher permission, "You're not going to class until you've sat here in front of me for 30 minutes and I'll march you to class." And I was like, "Well, I'm not a kid." He's like, "Well, you are technically a kid. I'm the adult. So I'll walk you to class." And I was like, "Why?" He goes, "So you don't go to the bathroom." And I was like, No. I mean, I'm okay. We've talked. And I just realized I don't care about those kids anymore." And he's like, "Well, I hope so." And then he put me into track and field. And he said, when this season is over, you're going to start, play soccer and indoor soccer, because I grew up in Saskatchewan, Western Canada, cold as heck. So for that reason, there was indoor soccer, indoor stuff. And he's like, you're going to sign up for that. Just have fun. Don't think about losing weight. Just have fun. I just want you to have fun. You're perfect. And now I think back, Mr. Child is his name. Mr. Child did an amazing thing, spoke to me that way for me to break down that facade. And thank goodness I was also willing to hear him. And it was exhausting. I couldn't believe it was the worst 3 months of my life and not eating right. And I couldn't believe how exhausted I was trying to please. So yes, young people have a lot now. They're being bombarded from every all the magazines, the social media, the TVs, everything they're watching. And then, of course, there's the movies, everything. And then, of course, now we learn about algorithms, from the documentary I watched. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is what has been done to our young people. And no wonder they're stressed. No wonder they're confused. They don't know who they are anymore. And they're thinking they need to be something else in order for them to fit in. And, with lack of a better word, I spoke to, when I was in grad school, and I told one of my professors, I think I'm weird. And he's like, why? He said, I'm a little weird. I do some weird things. And he said, okay, what's the problem? And I'm like, well, I just want to fit in and act like everybody. He said, why would you want that? He goes, the way you are is just fine, because, and he said, why would you even think about fitting in? And I said, well, the way most of them process when we are doing the theories, they come up this way and all of that. But I go up the back door and then come up with all kinds of different ways and then come to my answer. Then he said, that's how you process. That's just you. Leave that alone. That's your own way of coming to your answer. Maybe that's your gift. The rest of them have their own way. Don't try to be like them. You never fit. The shoes will never fit because yours was made the way you were supposed to wear it. And that's it. You might wear it sideways, but it's still fit. And you can still walk in it.
Yep. There you go.
Oh my goodness.
Moving forward.
Yes. Dr. Mark, I am so pleased that you took the time to talk to us and for this teaching and for the understanding that you're doing an amazing work to break the barriers of negating our strength, because spiritually, our strength lays there. And for lack of a better word, this 3D or whatever world we may call it, this physical world, is not the only thing. There's more. There's so much more.
Much more.
Yes, yep. And it's not against us. Yeah. They're here to assist us to achieve our life purpose and grow in the teaching and recognize that we are truly one. We are one family. We are one family because we are all a part of the human race. And there's no separation.
Absolutely.
We are one. No matter how hard we try, we will come back to the same truth.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. And I deeply appreciate you guys letting me come on your show and
thank you.
And talk about my theories and by all means, I've been in the practice now for about 25 years, off and on, and I can say with certainty that today, well, it's actually been about 5 years now, but today, I am more at peace with my spiritual balance than I have ever been in my entire life.
Wow.
And one of the things you and I talked about earlier one of the things that has given me is a clarity of thought.
Yes.
That I can now think about. I've never officially studied human physiology. I don't know biology and all the, but yet the theory, the thesis and the hypothesis that I have produced now speak to all the sections of the brain, of the human brain.
Yes.
And I was able to dissect it and figure out what did what, not based on a textbook, because I don't have any textbooks for that.
A lot of research, though.
But just clarity of thought. And, and the way I achieve my clarity of thought, and we talked about meditation, but it's more important than just meditation. It's the balance of attaining and understanding my role, my position in the world that we live in right now. And hopefully I can provide some guidance and wisdom for folks to help them to achieve their balance, irrelevant of what theology or ideology they want to follow.
Yes.
Understanding some of the core principles of spiritual interpretation of the human existence is really, really, really important to obtaining your balance and certainly to a happier, healthier life.
I agree. I so agree with that, because...
And I'll if I may, I'd just like to do a shameless pitch for my website.
Yes, please. That's my next question I was going to ask you, so perfect.
Okay.
How can we get in touch with you?
A.K. Uwe Hefnar, and that's A.K. as in Alaska, ULFHEDNAR.com. And or you can check the shows out on Apple, Google, the whole barrage, and it's called the Alaskan Uwe Hefnar podcast. It's a weekly production. We talk about all kinds of topics. Mostly some of the earlier topics was dispelling a lot of the myths of monotheism and breaking down some barriers of that realm. We also talked about, as I mentioned, I have a very long history of being Danish, and therefore I tried to dispel myths about what people know as the quote-unquote Viking Age.
Yes.
Where there are people out in the world right now trying to capture our language, the very early writings, and trying to capture it and produce a narrative of sexism and racism and disgusting filth. And so I work a little bit at dispelling that as well.
Good.
Going forward, little bit of talk about where my theories lie, and what that will entail is explaining how we can all spiritually connect and be together spiritually as one people.
Yes.
Under to be free to be who we're intended to be, and just to be happy. And so that's the podcast. Again, it's produced every week. There's a webpage at the address I gave.
Yes.
And then the webpage just produces a lot of history about the Norse, and particularly about what Uwe Hefners were and are in the world, so that folks can understand where I come from and more about me.
I love it. I love it. I think you're a brilliant teacher and guide. And I want our young people to hear what you have to say to them. So I hope my listeners are listening. And I'm going to send this information to my listeners and my friends and family so they can hear more. And in particular, my brother, because he just started a small organization to teach young people about their self-worth and connecting to self, going inward and breaking that down, the facade, and learning. So I'm especially happy and excited that he's going to hear it and be like, whoa, I've been saying a lot of this. And Dr. Mark has a lot of this. It's like, was he listening on me, what I was saying? He's gonna be shocked. But I that's the great part of all this, because spirit connects. And I always say, what you say or what the thoughts you're holding in your head, you're not the only one holding it. Chances are another person is holding it. The only difference between you and the person is because you acted on it.
Right.
And some people don't.
You repeated it or wrote it down or did something to memorialize it, but nonetheless, you're exactly right. That thought was bouncing around in all kinds of heads.
Yes.
At the same time. So yeah, you're exactly right.
My goodness, I could speak to you all night, but I know you have things to do, and you're a busy man. I can't wait when you finish your theory and your research. Please do come back, share with us, and please, anytime you have time and you say, "Hey, I just discovered more stuff. I thought I thought I was done learning a lot of the deep stuff, but no, I just got deeper." Please, let me know. You're welcome anytime, so that we can share and grow together. I've learned so much from you. I feel like a little child right now. I feel like, oh, mommy, daddy, I just learned this. I know it's going to be on with my dad, and it's going to be like, oh gosh, there she goes again. She gets excited. But yeah, knowledge is to be shared. And the wisdom, especially that comes from the knowledge, is powerful. And when it spreads around, it creates a whole being that we become one. And when that spreads, it trickles down.
Absolutely.
Not just in one corner. I appreciate you.
Rain.
Yes. Please repeat your email address again.
My email address would be AK Uwe Hefner, and that's ULF as in Frank, HEDNAR.com, or wait, at AKOutlaw.com.
AKOutlaw.com. Thank you. I'll make sure I share this and with everybody.
And that brings up a great point, is I was going to just say, on that website, if you go to that AK Uwe Hefner website, there is a place where your listeners and yourself can always pose questions.
Yes.
There is a little button there in the upper, actually, I guess it's to the left. No, to the right. Okay. And it's, you can ask a question, any question. And there's a bunch of questions already out there that have been answered as far as kind of where I come from and where I stand. But you can ask any question, and I try, my staff, they're usually pretty good. They'll catch me between sessions and say, oh, we got this great question, and they'll just rip it off in the hallway. And so, yeah, they get kind of excited about questions. So, and we try to answer them at the day we get them. Okay. And I try to always set aside some time every day where I can answer the questions and get the people the right answers. Okay. And then what I typically do, we also do a show on an app called Wisdom. Not sure if you're familiar with that. No. Wisdom is an app that's on the, I think right now it's only available for the iPhone gang, but I think it's coming for the other gang, whatever the other gang, Android. Okay. But the Wisdom app is basically mentors that kind of give advice, and there's some conversations that happen, all kinds of different formats. And I do usually try to do a 7 to 8 minutes every day, every weekday. Okay. And we'll usually pick a topic from questions that were asked and just put out the answer there. Like I said, it's about an 8-minute publication that we put out every day.
Okay.
So, yeah, so
now,
that's another place you can check us out. And
so Wisdom used to be...
A.K. Uwe Hefner.
Perfect. I was just going to ask that. Perfect. A.K.
Yep.
Uwe Hefner. Perfect. Because I was going to ask, wait, is it the same name on Wisdom? So I'm excited. I think this is going to be opening the dialogue, especially with our young people constantly going like this. At least this is something that they can access and get the meanings that they need and start their own healing, because healing doesn't start when we're quote unquote old, because that's what they call us. But it starts wherever you are and what age. So I can't wait. I love all this. I've been taking notes and writing. It's got like 2 pages already because I've been writing. But I am so glad that we got you, and I can't wait to have you on again. Thank you so much. I can't wait
to come back.
Yes.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Have an amazing week. And of course,
you too.
My brother, take care. And thank you for joining me on Love, Forgive, Live. And I can't wait for us to grow and learn how to communicate with spirit and know that it is important for us to connect with one another in this beautiful family we call the human race and being one. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Join us next week on Love, Forgive, Live, and we will definitely make sure that we will tell you more about teaching about Dr. Weisman and everything. Go ahead and check the website, email him, ask questions, go to Wisdom app and learn more, and take care away. And then those of you who want to contact me, do so at Love, LUV, 4 give, GIVE, live, LIVE, at gmail.com. My name is Chora Glago. Thank you very much. Signing off. Bye-bye. All right. Thank you.